to order September 10th, 2024 meeting of the North Andover Planning Board. All right, we're going to try to go quickly through our agenda items. Number one, bond release, Woodley Village. Michael Tancredi as trustee of Woodley Andover Trust and Kathleen Donovan as trustee of Woodley Village Homeowners Trust. Request for release of $14,300 in bond funds plus all accumulated interest. Bond funds to be released in accordance with the agreement and assignment of bonds and security.
Right,
Jean?
so as you know, this was a petition at town meeting for street acceptance. The required conservation restriction has been signed by the Select Board, Conservation Commission, and the state.
Wow.
The recorded copy is included in your meeting packet. The recorded street deeds, street layout plan, and trustee certificate are also included in the packet. The request for release is the remaining bond funds of $14,200 plus accumulated interest. There is an agreement that Kate is going to speak to in terms of the bond release. Is an assignment of bonds and security signed by the developer, Michael Tancredi, trustee of Woodley Andover Trust developer, and Kathleen Donovan, trustee of Woodley Village Homeowners Trust, whereby the developer assigns 50% of its rights, title, and interest in any of the bonds or cash securities posted with the town of North Andover to the Homeowners Trust. And so we've talked to the treasurer. That can be executed in that manner, but Kate, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Sure, just by way of background, the developer on this project built the subdivision back in 1996. The subdivision was never completed in terms of the street acceptance, so the homeowners came to us last spring and asked us to usher this through the street acceptance process. The developer exists but wasn't interested in participating or fronting the costs, so we did get him to agree to assign over half of the bond money to allow the homeowners to undertake the work that we needed to do this. So the only caveat with the parties on the agreement is that, as I understand it, the developer wants the bond released to a different entity that he now operates, and we can get an assignment to that effect. And then the Woodley Village Homeowners Trust has their account set up as Woodley Village Civic Association, which was how it was set up back when they first created this. So it's just a matter of how the checks will be payable, but we could solve that with the treasurer.
Okay, so I just think we just need all of that kind of in writing where all the checks are going to, connecting the dots between who's named on the current bonds to who it's going to. Okay, and when did the conservation restriction come in?
Last week.
Okay, August, May, 3 months, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. For the what, you found the one person at the state who was working?
Yes.
All right, good job. All right, can we get a motion to approve the release of $14,300 plus interest for the bond for Woodley Village? Motion.
Second form of, as discussed tonight,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Kate. All right, 1270 Turnpike Street, David Sampson, request for release of $5,000 performance bond associated with the December 15th, 2020 site plan review modification special permit, which allow for the addition of 9 parking spaces, as well as additional site improvements to the rear of existing building, including a fence, regrading, loam, and seating, and adding a new retaining wall to improve accessibility to open space. Property is located in the Village Commercial Zoning District.
That was pretty standard. A site plan review special permit was granted in December 15th of 2020, which allowed for the applicant to restripe parking spaces and add 9 new spaces, as well as additional site improvements to the rear of the building. That included a fence, regrading, lumen seating, and adding a new retaining wall to improve accessibility to open space. The as-built plan and site photos, as well as the notice of decision, is included in your packet. The Conservation Commission has issued a certificate of completion. So this is the interior of the parking lot looking towards 114. Landscaping is vastly improved, which was conditioned as part of the permit. So there's a sewer pumping station that was accounted for in the design, with shrubbery to separate that. Along the frontage, this white fence was put up with shrubbery to the front side as well as the interior side.
I was going to ask, they were going to try to sell or lease the building, right?
Their sell or lease, the sign has been up.
It's
So
still,
they did
yeah.
new foundation plantings, and these were all taken just a couple weeks ago, so everything is living and surviving.
Okay, can I get a motion to release bond funds of $5,000 at 1270 Turnpike Street?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. 125 Flagship Drive, American Towers LLC, request for a release of surety bond posted for discontinuance abandonment of a wireless facility.
So this was permitted in 2011 by Florida Tower Partners for a wireless facility special permit for a 140-foot multi-carrier monopool. At the time, a $10,000 cash performance bond was posted in addition to this required surety bond for the abandonment and removal, which is in the bylaws, required of all cell carriers. The performance bond, the cash bond, was released in 2013 because the facility was never constructed. At that time, Florida Powers posted the surety bond. The lease had since been taken over by American Towers in 2014. The surety bond was canceled and a new bond was put in place by American Towers. It's in the same amount of $10,000 surety bond, and they're just requesting release of that bond after 10 years of it's never been constructed.
And the permit has lapsed.
The permit's lapsed.
Yeah, so they would
Yes.
have to come back again.
Yeah.
if they-
Okay. The motion to allow the release of the surety bond for 125 Flagship Drive.
So moved.
Second.
Give that second to Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. Let's do... All right, so there are a couple of continued public hearings that are being continued. 335 Salem Street is continued until September 24th. 1250 Osgood Street is continued until September 24th. Great Pond Road continued until September 24th. So those will all be allowed and continued until that date. Let's do the Main Street one. Let's do that one now. And then we'll come back and do 1101 Turnpike. So discussion item 149 Main Street, 14 Second Street, Crespo Development. Request for insubstantial modification to approve site plan and special permit to slightly adjust the common lot line boundary between the applicant's property and property owned by Spencer, 159 Main Street, and McGregor, 161 Main Street. And we'll also do A&R Plan 149 Main Street, 14 Second Street, Crespo Development. We'll hear that as well. Hi, John. Okay, so this is property permitted, 149 Main Street, 14 Second Street, and we're looking for an insubstantial change, and as I understand it, this has to do with the issue of the lot line boundary that had kind of come up during some of the hearings, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, John, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Sure, quickly. As you recall from perhaps our last meeting before the board back in April, there was a question raised by one of the abutters in terms of the survey adjacent to her property because the survey was so close to her house. That was Karen Spencer at 158 Main. And so after that time, to her credit, she retained a surveyor and came up with a different boundary. And we had her surveyor confer with our surveyor, and then we hired a third-party surveyor just to check the work that was done. And turns out that the survey that resulted in the need for some slight adjustments to the common property boundary. And so in terms of the plan that we submitted to the board, it's really sort of like a pie-shaped area along the common boundary, and there was approximately an 18-inch variance at the corner of Main Street and 149 Main and the Spencer property. The red is the original lot boundary and the blue is the revised boundary along there. And then as you go westerly or to the right, you come to 161 Main, and then which is reduced in terms of area by about, the lot area has been reduced by about 6 inches, and it goes to 0 at the very end of the property boundary. So as a result of that, we took a look at our site plan, and as a result of the fact that we had built in some flexibility into that site plan, what we were able to do is to make sure that we maintained a 5-foot setback along that common boundary, which is required for parking setback. And we maintained the same parking spaces, the parking space size, the aisle width spaces, and the building square footage were all the same. The only difference in terms of square footage of the lot was approximately 124 square feet. So It's a new one on me. I've never had this happen in terms of a survey in the circumstance, but, fortunately, we're able to make some minor adjustments so that the site layout is substantially the same as presented and approved in the past, but for that minor incursion. So, with that said, we're requesting the board to approve this adjustment as a minor adjustment, and which would carry through to our final site plans.
Okay. And what discussions have you had with Ms. Spencer and the McGregors since the surveys were done, and it was found that Ms. Spencer was
Yeah.
who was pretty adamant that she was right.
And she was. to
Yep,
her credit.
that's great. So what has been done since the kind of you guys confirmed the survey? What discussions and
Yep.
going over the plans and things like that?
We have not had a direct discussion with Ms. Spencer, but we've spoken with her attorney, who's confirmed that she's in agreement with respect to the boundary change.
Okay.
We've reached out to the McGregors as well, and we have not yet had an on-site meeting to discuss it, but we haven't heard any objections to it either as well. So we've had a couple of on-site meetings scheduled, but they were postponed by one of the abutters. So we haven't had that communication with the McGregors, and we plan to do so, though.
Is the fence and screening still maintained as it was in the original plan?
Yes, if you recall way back in the original approval from last year, we had moved that fence back from the house, from the Spencer house, specifically because we wanted to enable there to be adequate access between her house and the fence for her to maintain it. And so we think that adjustment is fine as is. I mean, if we might have to move it a couple of inches, but what we want to do is have that discussion in the field and make sure they're all satisfied with those adjustments. And again, it's moving the boundary away from their property, so I think it's only a benefit to their properties.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
I just have one question. I'm assuming this won't affect any of the swept path analysis that we did for the site?
All the aisles remain
Okay.
That was a good question because we made sure we maintained those aisle widths.
Great.
Okay. Can we get a? Oh yeah. I mean, is there anyone? Not necessarily a public hearing, but if there is anyone that has any comments or questions, or anyone that wants to be heard on this, we're welcome to listen. Gina, have we received any questions or comments from the attorney or otherwise?
No.
Okay. Thank you, John. All right. Okay, so can we get a motion to approve the modification as an insubstantial change?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And so now we need to vote on the A&R plan based on the new boundaries, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So could we get a motion to approve the A&R plan and instruct the planner to sign the form for 149 Main Street, 14 Second Street? Motion made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, keep going.
Thank you very much.
All right,
We hope to have demos start very soon, and
everyone will like that.
finally we'll get the project going. Thank you very much.
Okay. Gene, I haven't looked at the planning board meeting calendar. I don't know if that's something we can,
You can carry it.
yeah, can we carry that? I haven't had time to look at that. Can we get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 27th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, just wanted to get that done. All right, continued public hearings, 1101 Turnpike Street, Metro West Realty LLC. Application for a land disturbance permit in connection with proposed construction of a parking lot expansion at the Merrimack Valley Operation and Maintenance Facility, National Grid.
And so at the previous meeting, the applicant requested a continuance to the 9/10 planning board meeting and signed an extension of time to render the decision until September 26th, which is 2 days after the next hearing date. The applicants provided a table of use and existing conditions parking analysis showing 325 existing spaces versus 224 required. The building inspector has confirmed the actual spaces provided exceeds the amount required. In addition, the applicant has provided perspective renderings from Route 114 and confirmed a MIPA review is not required. And they also confirmed a National Grid representative will attend the meeting. Department review comments have been received from Health and DPW Operations. No concerns were expressed. The stormwater peer review has been completed. All the concerns successfully addressed. There's been a placeholder on for additional test pits as a condition in a draft decision that's being prepared. The peer reviewer has also suggested that the board may want to discuss with the applicant its proposed method of removing the ledge if large areas require removal to install the gravel wetland. And they're still before the Conservation Commission. So there's no ledge in the area, and so the concern is where that gravel wetland's going. If there's a large amount of ledge, that you can speak to how that's going to be removed.
Right, great. Hi. All right.
Should I just introduce who we have here to
That'd
help
be
out? Again, for the record, my name's Karen Staffier. I'm with VHB. We have Jeremy Stevenson from JLL, and then we have three folks from National Grid here, Chris Thibodeau, Danielle Prince, and Shamat Kamal.
Okay, great. So why don't you go over what you've brought us that's new since the last meeting, and then I know some board members might have some questions for you and for the
Sure.
National Grid representatives, and that's how we'll go.
Absolutely. You want to just go in order of the memo, or? We could start with the perspectives. So one of the questions that we were asked was, we get it's a parking lot, it's a lawn now, what's it going to look like in the future, right? So what we did is we went out and we took existing conditions photographs, looking at the site from kind of a southerly direction as you might be driving, up 114, and then from more the north side looking south. So what you see here is the existing conditions view. You can see the building in the background, and the sign with the trees on it on either side of it there. And then we rendered in both the stormwater features, the new retaining wall, and the new landscaping that would happen as part of the project. So you can catch a glimpse of a little bit of the parking in the distance, but there's not a substantial kind of view of vehicles.
Can you go back up one? I just want to see the. Okay, you can go back now. Okay.
And then looking from the from the north, this is the view. When I took these pictures, I was standing on kind of the opposite side, on the shoulder, on the far side of the road, just for perspective. And then this is the view looking from that angle. So you can see we have filled a little bit in to put the tail end of that parking lot in, and you can see the proposed vegetation on the perimeter of the parking lot, and then also.
Can you go back, Gene? So, go back to the last one. No, other way. So I see that you've proposed adding these conifers, but are those also 4 mature broadleaf trees that are added?
There's both. So there's deciduous trees in the parking lot,
Yeah.
and then there's also conifers on the perimeter of the parking lot.
So
you
this
get
is showing the deciduous at mature stage.
Yes,
And what will be planted?
I can check the landscape plan. But the landscape plan was submitted
Yeah.
with the application.
I'm just curious what the planting size is compared to the mature size shown in this illustration.
So the deciduous trees that are planted there's 8 red maples and 3 black tupelos. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the Latin names. And 5 Valley Forge American elms. And they are 3 to 3.5 caliper at the time of planting, which is consistent with what new trees would typically be.
Okay.
Kind of weak.
What's that?
Kind of weak.
Not the best, but. All right.
6 to 8 feet.
No, it would be, for the deciduous trees, no, they would be much taller. I don't know. I don't know the exact height. If you had the landscape rendering that was in the package of rendered site plans, you can see kind of the placement of them on the plan, how they look on the plan. So you can see they're in all the landscape islands, and then they're on the perimeter of the site.
I'm feeling that the pictures don't match this. This looks much closer to the street than what those pictures showed. What do you think, Peter? I mean, it just,
Right.
that's much further back.
Can you go back to the rendering, the picture, the drawing again? Okay, hold on. Now, in this drawing, what is the current location of the sign in front? Can you put your cursor? Yeah,
Right
that's
there.
what I
Yep.
thought. Yeah. And now can you go back to the previous photo? No, not that one. No.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
I think it's just a matter of where you're, no, if you could, can we leave it the one with the cars? Keep going, oh, two more down. The one with the, where we can see the cars. So I think the issue is we're not seeing, the parking lot kind of comes around, so it actually comes pretty close to the sign, but we're not seeing those. We're not seeing those cars. We're seeing the cars that are in the parking lot further away.
Yeah, I think it's more of an angle of the photo.
Correct.
Right?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
So I think there will be cars closer, but those are more behind the sign.
But the, and if we could notice to the right, the expanse goes back pretty far. Can you show the drawings as opposed to this? Okay, so what we're seeing there is that angle to,
It's like we're seeing a row of cars behind the trees that are shown here on the right, but not cars on the upper right and upper left in in that. It's like we're seeing the row of cars furthest away, but not the other rows of cars.
Yeah, I think that some of that might be the angle and some might be the topography too.
You do?
well,
Well, look at the, if you go back, you can, it's sort of, it looks like it's a little bit hilly there. So it looks like the grass
Yeah.
rises there and comes back. So I think that might have just been, one, the particular angle which the photograph is taken at, but also because of that hill there, you may or may not see.
well,
So can you tell us in this image,
Yep.
projecting what it should look like, if we go back to the drawing that shows the parking spaces, for the image we just saw, where are the cars in that image?
So the cars that you're seeing are the cars closest to the street. Because as the chairman mentioned, the ones on the top left row, if you will, are kind of behind the grade of the grass area that remains. So the parking lot, because the building entrance sits very low, the parking lot pitches back towards the building. And the cars kind of closer to the street are, in a way, if you can see those cars, they're blocking your view of any of the other cars because they're farther down the hill. So the grade of the parking lot at closest to the street is at 227, and you're at 223 at the face of building.
Can you go back to the,
So it's, yeah, you can zoom in and you can see more of the cars. I believe when they do the renderings, they populate the whole parking lot with cars so that if there's cars, you can see them.
is the parking in a depression lower than?
Yes.
I'm missing it, because it
It-
rises up, so you're saying is that the cars are further down?
The northerly section is in a cuts into the slope. So the remaining slope is what blocks your view of that lot from the street.
so you're saying the lot, once the grading is done, the lot will slope towards the building?
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, just to put a little bit in context, I'm not trying to torment you or anything like that, although it might seem like that, I suppose. But that, you know, in all my years in the planning board, we worked very hard to maintain and manage the streetscape along 114. And we, you know, if you look at virtually every project we've done, we've invested a lot of time and energy and resources and careful thought into it so that everything looks right. And that's really what we're trying to do here, so that it continues to be an attractive look as you go through the
What's
town.
up? So,
Yeah.
I agree, I'm not sure that this is gonna be, I don't think it's gonna look exactly like this. But on the one hand, I'm not sure how much I care, because it's a national grid facility, but at the same time, what's on the other sides? I mean, would it be better if there was like, I'm just trying to wonder if on the one hand, it's like you have the natural of the trees, or would it be better to have kind of like, you know how we did like the fencing down by the Eaglewood Plaza or something like that? Would it be
Well,
better
I
to have,
mean,
like,
it's
fencing or something
possible
like that?
to, you know, my initial thought was to put a little fencing there. I'm not sure with the topography that will necessarily work. I kind of think that this is one of those cases where we have to come up with a plan and maybe enhance the plan a little bit with a few more specimens, but also hold it open to see what it looks like. This, I don't think we're going to know for sure. I mean, I don't want it to be completely open-ended, but this feels to me like I'm not quite sure what it's going to look like when it's done, and it would be nice to have sort of a chance to revise it and tweak it a little bit in terms of what's being built there.
So maybe similar to the further down on 114 where the auto body shop was, where we had the planting plan and the stone wall, and it took like a year or two, and then
Yeah.
like the right plants weren't growing, so they kind of changed it, and now it took a little time and it came out well, but we kept the requirement was for appropriate screening, and then we kind of came back and looked at it, and it wasn't quite right. So similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, something, you know, I don't want it to be like absolutely draconian where there's no certainty, you know, about what we might end up doing, but we need some level of flexibility to say if it doesn't look right, we gotta have another crack at it.
Okay, I get it. Okay, John, you have a comment or?
I mean, my one comment, if you go to the rendering on slide 2, I mean, you know, going back to John's point, I mean, we're not gonna know really what it's gonna look like until it's done, but like, this is kind of an example of, like, if we had a little bit more specimens to screen some of the retaining wall and the cars, like at that corner, right?
Well,
So,
but what is it that, I guess it, for the applicants, like, what is it that we're hoping to get out of this? I mean, we see a retaining wall, is that a bad thing, a good thing, does it matter? Seeing the cars in the parking lot, again, what is it that we're trying to achieve, I think would be kind of helpful guidance.
This is part of the wetland all the way up past the sign.
Yeah.
So part of that detention wetland basin here extends all the way up to here. So the corner of that
I mean, right
retaining
now,
wall,
yeah,
the wetland extends beyond here,
right.
the basin.
So again, like if we wanted a fence, you know, there's one, you have the issue with the guardrail kind of right there. Two, John's point about topography, but also you have wetlands, and so that's, you know, potentially an issue as well. But again, I'm not sure that unless you put it really high, and that's not what we want, that it's going to actually block anything. I think the key is enough trees close to the parking lot, survivable tall trees. I think would be the kind of the best thing.
But now, what's the retaining wall gonna be made out of?
It's a block retaining wall.
Okay, it's a block, yeah, I mean, if it's a block as opposed to, you know, poured concrete, that's a step forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect it to be a cast-in-place wall. Can I make maybe a suggestion or a discussion point? So I'm hearing lots of different things. I've heard, like, when we first were in front of you, that you like it looking like a lawn, and I appreciate that. my gut reaction is a fence
No,
probably won't give you that sense of openness, but I tried very hard with my team because I knew how important these views were to you guys to try to find, the worst place I could take the pictures from that would give you kind of the worst real example. I know the topography on this site relative to the road plays a really strong factor in how it looks. So it's not really all that intuitive. And I know we model that in 3 dimensions and cut the sections and layer it in. Like, I don't know all the technology, but I know our experts do that really carefully because we want you to trust when we come in front of you with the rendering that at the end of the day, it's going to be pretty close, right? If you don't mind, can you go back to slide 4? One thing that came to my mind, we were basically showing you what we believe the plan demonstrates. One thing we could do looking at this and looking at the grading plan is we could introduce maybe a 2-foot higher berm on the street side of the parking lot, which would, then you'd have a grade that was maybe 2.5 feet above the parked cars that are closest to the street, which would help kind of give you that feeling like the lawn continues and then the cars are kind of parked behind it. It wasn't something we had in the original plan, in large part because we were trying to minimize disturbance. We're here for a land disturbance permit, right? So we were like, let's try to minimize our land disturbance and our work. But we have excess material on the site. I think it would provide a little bit more of the look that is more consistent with what's there now. From this view, instead of seeing the cars, you might see the tops of the cars maybe, but we could add about another 2.5 feet to that slope on the street side. And I think that might help a lot towards more screening.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. And it wasn't readily apparent until we did these, so it was helpful.
Okay. All right, why don't we go to the next topic, if there's one?
The next topic was photometric plan. The photometric plans for the project are just a really simple, there's light poles on the four light poles on the either edge, 2 on either edge of the parking lot, and 1 in the new central island. It's kind of minimal lighting levels for safety, and this basically demonstrates that there's no spilling of light onto the adjacent properties or the street.
But there's 0 candles as it extends out.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's fairly straightforward. We did provide a parking inventory that was requested and kind of an approximation of some of the existing uses that were on site. National Grid Utility Operations Center is not defined in zoning with a strict parking requirement, so we did our best to approximate, based on the uses in the zoning code, what's happening in the building. So approximating it as a combination of warehouse and office for the main buildings, and then the maintenance building, which is the fleet repair garage, as a service station, which are best fits, if you will, in the code relative to the types of operations that are happening here. Like we've spoke about before, the site operations are not changing from what they do today. It's just a continuation of the same use.
Well, this is not something where customers come, right? So it's
Correct.
So, I mean, you're able to control how many people
Yes.
show up, right? It wouldn't be a surprise, not a restaurant, it's not retail, it's not, anything where where you don't know how many people are coming on. And even if you have a big meeting or something like that, you can control how many people you invite and things like that, so.
That's correct.
On-site,
It's gated.
It's gated.
Correct. It's gated access
I
for
couldn't get in.
security and materials
I bet you could, Gene.
control.
You could talk your way in. Okay, so, I mean, to the extent there's any parking crunch on site, that's kind of your own problem. Okay,
Let's let's see, we were asked for a rough earthwork estimate and a approximation. Gina had a follow-up question about the number of trucks from export that would be. So our net, this will probably get reduced a little bit with the addition of the berm, but about 17,000 cubic yards of net cut, so net export from the site, which, assuming a 16-yard load per truck, would be about 109 trucks during construction. From a MEPA review standpoint, that was a comment at the last hearing as well. We just documented for here that MEPA review is not required for this. And then most importantly, we brought our friends from National Grid with us.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments for the folks from National Grid?
No, thank you for coming, we appreciate it. And thank you for supporting your diligent engineers here.
I think one of the things that the board was just kind of really wanting some clarity on was, I know we're here for a land disturbance permit, but what exactly is the purpose of kind of the new parking situation? How does it help you folks at National Grid to kind of do this? Just because it does cut into the lawn and it does kind of change the appearance of the property. So what is it? How is this going to benefit you all?
So we have parking in the rear. It's not shown in this photo, but I believe it was shown in the, there's a photo of it, but that's where there's more parking spaces is in the back. Today, oh yeah, there you go. So today there's just a few parking spaces in the front. On a day-to-day operation, the parking lot gets pretty full, but the thing to remember is that this is a storm center. So whenever there's a storm, the storm center is open here, and then we get more people, we get more trucks. They're responding to outages. Even before outages, they're starting to prepare. So there's a lot going on there, and that's how it's been for decades. So that's not changing. It's just being able to operate more efficiently and more safely when it does happen. Because right now, if you run out of parking spaces, where you're going to end up parking is on the other side of the campus, which is not ideal during a storm when there's icy conditions. National Grid treats safety as number one priority, so we really want to avoid that happening. So,
What region would this storm center cover when the storm center is activated? How large is the region that would come under this purview?
The Merrimack Valley.
Okay. So from Newburyport up to Nashua or Manchester or?
New Hampshire, we don't cover anymore. It's all strictly Massachusetts.
Okay, thank you.
Probably Drake at Chelmsford would probably be the.
Well, Lowell up to just
So
south.
we have to
yeah.
Amesbury, Newburyport, up that way.
Yep,
You know.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And during a storm or outages, I know that a lot of times National Grid calls in other utility providers and contractors, so I'd envision that contractors would have use of the lot.
they can. I mean,
In some instances, they will. We typically set up staging sites at other locations, not at a company location, which is where they should report all the trucks and trailers and poles and everything they bring with them, depending on the size of the storm. And then it would really just be like the supervisors that would go out with their crews to go to the different areas where we have to do restoration. But our own people show up. We have blue sky days, our normal day, and then we have our storm roll. So everybody in the company is assigned a storm roll. So when you, I would go to one of those parking lots in direct trucks and park them as such so that they're wide enough away so we can fuel them at night while they're sleeping. But we typically don't have them come to this site. But if the word doesn't get out, if they're coming from Kentucky or Texas or, because we get them from everywhere, up in Canada, sometimes the word doesn't get out and they just show up at 1101 Turnpike Road in North Andover.
I think it's important to remember that this parking lot will be for personal vehicles.
it's-
So,
yeah,
so
it's for
people
our-
show up in their personal
Exactly.
vehicles, they gotta put their car somewhere, then they get in their service truck and they have
Right.
lots of duties to do, but they gotta stick their car somewhere, that is. And they gotta go in the building and get their orders and have their meetings and things like that, so.
Is this a relatively new use of this National Grid property as a storm center, or has that been the function for many years?
So for the 28 years that I've been with the company, yes, it's always been a storm room site is what we call it.
Storm what?
Storm room.
Yeah, okay.
We set up a storm room, so,
Yep.
you know, wires down, it's the whole thing, you know, from a storm restoration perspective.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they'll open before a storm, close after the storm's over.
Right, yeah.
If there's a predicted storm, let's say it doesn't even happen, they still became a storm site, which means there was still an influx of people, so.
And when you activate, do you have somebody on this site from MEMA, or do you send someone to MEMA's EOC?
We send them to MEMA.
Okay,
Yeah, there's folks that go to MEMA.
thanks.
Okay, Chris? Anything, John? Okay, all right. Gene, next steps?
So I trust we'll get some type of rendering showing that berm. And
Do you want just the updated grading plan? Showing the berm a couple feet
Grading
higher,
plan
just
enough?
For the record, to,
Yeah, I think you might look at enhancing the plantings, I want something that, yeah.
I don't know that it's going to show all that much. I like the idea, but I'm okay without the rendering, but if you think it would be helpful, that's fine with me.
Well, I mean, I don't know, I mean, as long as when we make a final decision, we get some reasonable flexibility to add screening.
So I think,
appropriate.
yeah, I think we should, I think an updated grading plan that we can incorporate into the decision that we're basing it on the new grading plan. And then we can, and then Gene, in the draft decision, if we could just have some, yeah, just let's just be cognizant of the screening and just put in a condition that we can kind of play with the language just to make sure it's not too onerous, not too exact, because I think there is a good value to being able to see how it looks once it, you know, when
Yep.
it's planted, and then have some flexibility on everybody's end to just make it the best that it can be.
And the updated grading plan you had suggested would show 2 to 2.5 foot increase?
correct.
Okay.
Okay, I think that sounds good. All right, so we'll have I don't think we need everyone here for the next meeting, and we'll have a draft decision for the 24th, and we'll anticipate voting on that on the 24th. Okay?
Thank you, guys.
Hold on, actually.
Whoop.
Is there any members of the public that have any comments? None, anything that's come in online? Okay. Just making sure. Okay, we will continue until September 24th. Great, thank you very much for the presentation. Very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, good. September 24th is going to be busy, huh? Okay. I think that's all. Anything else? Anybody? Good. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. All right, we are good.
Very good.